Welcome to Sex Ed in the City with Drew and Dr. G.
About health and sex education in today's modern classroom. Get an inside peek into the world of sex education and real-life stories from teachers. Hosted by experienced educators Drew and Dr. G, each episode brings you an open and honest discussion about a range of topics related to health and sex education.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sex Ed in the City with Drew and Dr. G. Dr. G,
Hey, y'all.
how's it going today? How you living?
It's good. I am finally feeling better after being sick for a while. So that's a relief.
Great.
How are you? I see you have a fun background today.
I am coming to you live from Provincetown, which is, for those who don't know, it's on the very tip of Massachusetts. All the like stereotypically gay places are like the hardest to get to. So you have to like go to Boston, take a ferry, or Fire Island. You have to do all those things. So I'm at a lovely cafe right now, enjoying my week off.
I was really going to be immature and be like, the tip.
Oh, man. Who do we have with us today, Dr. G? What's going on? Who is this person?
I am so excited for our guest today, y'all. For many reasons, most importantly, because our guest today is my big sister. So that's a win. Yay. So we are welcoming today Kellie Resue. So I'm going to read her bio a bit. So after spending 3 decades in education as a pre-K teacher, K-8 substitute, and pre-K administrator and a parent educator, Kellie transitioned to the mental health, behavioral health field with a focus on relationships and personal development. Kellie owns a coaching business, mentors teens in the Department of Juvenile Corrections, supports individuals as a community-based mental and behavioral health provider, and consults parents and teachers in their relationship with their children and students. Kellie has a degree in psychology, early childhood education, and is certified in positive discipline, Alderian psychology, and nonviolent communication. So welcome my big sis, Kellie, everyone.
Hi, thank you guys, thank you. As Maria Forleo would say, I'm just multi-passionate. That's really what the bio should say.
Oh, I love that. Oh, fancy.
Yeah, I already have so many questions about all those things. I was like writing stuff down. I was like, what is this?
Oh my gosh. Well, we are so excited you're here. And it's so funny because we have very like similar streams of work, but very different lenses and like ways we go about them. So I'm excited to have you and to kind of get into what we're talking about. But do we have a question of the day, Drew, to start us off?
Of course we do. The question of the day is, what are your top 3 most embarrassing Rachel moments growing up?
Oh my!
You're so rude.
I'm totally kidding.
Oh
No,
man!
I tell them actually.
Can we get one? Can we get one at least?
Oh my god,
Man. That's good. That was good.
okay.
You had Rachel there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll allow you to tell one embarrassing story. Maybe that's fine.
Are we going with that question?
Yeah,
for real?
I think you should.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Give us one. Give us a good one. Or if we can give you time if you need to think, and you can come back at the end.
Yeah, you answer first, Drew. What's your most embarrassing Rachel moment?
Oh my
I
god.
don't know what mine is.
I wouldn't say it's embarrassing, but I saw a very vulnerable side of Rachel when she
Oh no, I know what you're gonna say.
when she got sick at our local state health and phys ed conference. I mean, everybody has their thing when they're sick, but like Rachel must have got it bad because we woke up and she was just like, she was kind of like incapacitated. She couldn't move. She was just like laying there when we had to ride home. She had like the chair back.
I was so sick and he was just taking pictures of me and I was like,
Hold on, I'm gonna find a picture at some point.
Oh, wow,
but it's
so
also
rude.
very much like my friend Jen. When my best friend Jen gets sick, she is like, but I get it. It's not fun.
Okay, but I just wasn't sick, y'all. I literally was throwing up and having diarrhea. Like I was violently ill and I had to get up and pack and I couldn't. I was so nauseous. And then I had to ride for 4 hours in a car with Drew and another of our colleagues, and they hated me. And I was like, I'm dying. And they were like, "Oh, you're just drank too much last night." I'm like, "No, I had one adult beverage. It's something else. I ate at the buffet. That's what happened." So
I'm an
no.
asshole. I'm an asshole for even like, I mean, if that's the
No.
worst thing, just you being sick, like that's not even that bad.
Yeah. Okay, I thought of two, and they're not
Yes.
really embarrassing. They're more like they would have been embarrassing if it had me doing it. But the cool thing about Rachel is that she does things, and even as her big sister, I'm like, oh, I wish I had the guts to do that. Or she just, as you know, she lives in the moment really well. So two things. One, years ago, she came to Idaho and we went sledding in McCall. And every time I drive by this location, which I just did this last weekend, there's a very, steep hill that isn't even used for sledding anymore because it's dangerous.
Rachel.
So they don't even allow people to do it anymore. But me and my family, including Rachel, went to the very top of that mountain. And Rachel, I think you lived in New York at the time. You weren't in California, right? Okay. Yeah. But she came with her really cool big glasses, sunglasses. She had really big hoop earrings on, and she had the cool ski outfit. And we went up to the top of the hill, and I came down first, and she came down, and she ate it at the end, like tumble, 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 like a cartoon, like turn into a snowball, only the snowball didn't happen. And she stands up like, I'm okay. But her glasses were like this, and her earrings were all crazy. Like, I cannot get that image. Every time I go by there, I have a little giggle because it was such a fun memory.
Yeah, I literally was doing backflips. Like,
yeah, like the fact that you made it was without being harmed was amazing, but that's a fun memory. And then actually the other one is more recent, and my grandson and I were just talking about this like 2 days ago. We were at the coast in Oregon, and Rachel decided we were going to have a dance party in the parking lot. And so she jumped out of the car and started dancing in the parking lot. And then when the other sister was like rolling away, she was like dancing with the door. And we agreed that it was super fun. So not embarrassed. I don't think Rachel, it doesn't embarrass me that she did it. I would have been embarrassed had I been doing it. But, Rachel just rolls with it, which is what's fun about Rachel. So anyways, those are two things that I thought of.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Always trying to dance. Always dancing.
Yes.
Yeah, dancing.
Oh my gosh, that was a hilarious day. Although I thought you were going to talk about the Mariah Carey dance off.
That was another good moment on the coast.
Yeah, that same trip.
I actually do have that picture of you in that special outfit. Remember what unitard you were in?
Yeah, I brought a full body leopard unitard for my sleeping attire for our sister's weekend. And one night we were drinking wine, as sisters do. And so, okay, the three of us, Kellie always videos the things because Kellie does not like doing quote unquote embarrassing things. So she's always the videographer, right? So in all videos of us doing family ridiculous things, Kellie's videoing and you hear her giggling. Okay, so that's the mode. So me and Dana are doing a Mariah Carey dance off. Me and Dana remember moves that we like, routines we made up when we were a kid. It was just, there's a great video. Maybe we can add it to the end of this podcast.
It is a good video.
Yeah, I'll have to get Dana's permission about that. But it was
quite... There's a few good videos. There's a good video of Rachel singing what's the John Bon Jovi song? Wanted.
Wanted Dead or Alive, my go-to.
Wanted Dead or Alive.
I will nail it every time.
Yes.
Nice.
That's a good video too. We have.
Well, Rachel, you're just a legend.
Yeah, she's the fun sister for sure.
She's the Leo. She's the star.
Facts. It is Leo season. My birthday is just around the corner, as everyone prepared. I hope. Ridiculous. Well, let's get into some good juicy stuff for our listeners. So Kellie, you're really big all you talk a little about connection in relationships and positive parenting. And I would love to hear, like, you share with our listeners, like your take on that, and what does that mean to build connection with your kids and positive parenting? Just like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, thank you. So I believe that all relationships, whether with kids or otherwise, starts with connection, and that how you connect with yourself first will show up in how you connect with other people. And how that plays out in parenting really is, let's be honest, for the first thing is, what's your story about how you were parented, and then how you want to show up as a parent. So that's one. And then as far as with kids, whether it's the work I do with parents, or I just did a training for a summer camp just a couple of weeks ago on building relationships for a peaceful classroom. And that is really about similar things that you guys have already touched on. A lot of active listening, a lot of asking questions. In positive discipline, we call them curiosity questions. A lot of not jumping in to fix things, but trusting the child to, and children together, to figure it out. We don't give kids enough credit to work their own skills that they have innately. As adults, we tend to want to have what we call power over, and I'm the parent or I'm the teacher, so I'm going to come in and tell you what has to be done because I'm older, I have more experience, which is why those things are true, and we have a lot to offer. We forget how smart, intuitive, and really creative kids are with solutions to a lot of problems, whether it be, in the level of preschool sharing toys, or whether it be like bigger questions. If they hear something on the news, kids have a lot of insight on solutions that we don't give them credit for. So being able to connect with kids, and first of all, allow them the autonomy to trust themselves and figure it out, and be there to support them by connecting. And so connecting, to me, when it comes to kids, is time, your presence, not presence, as in handing them a lot of things, and being really present. So that means that you're putting your devices away, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I tell parents all the time that if you can make it intentional to the point of you're almost announcing it, especially with little kids, they really appreciate, because everybody, and I say everybody meaning about 95% of people, are on their phone more often than not. And little kids notice that, even teenagers notice that. That's why they also are connected to their phone. But if you are intentional by saying something like, I'm going to put my phone on silent, and this is about me and you. How do you want to spend this time? And for teenagers, it looks like getting into their space. So that might mean you've got to sit on the bed with your son or daughter who's into video games, and just be present. And they're going to roll their eyes, and they're going to say, why are you here? But if you are consistent with having good intentions about really caring about what they're doing, and you ask questions. I just saw this modeled at the pool 2 days ago. A friend of mine who does not have any children, also has worked with me in education for years. I had my grandkids at the pool, and the oldest one was on his phone, and she came over and she just started asking about what he was doing. And then he put his phone down and was literally giving her a lesson on how a certain video game worked. And I watched just in real time her using the tools that we have worked with younger kids too. It's different with older kids. Obviously you're talking about different things, but the intention of connecting and truly having interest in what they're doing is key. And kids can tell when you're bullshitting them real quick. And they'll call you out on it. Even little kids can tell if you're faking it. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think about that piece of parents or teachers doing too much for young people, rather than, and I don't know if struggle is the right word, but really allowing them to kind of figure it out or to
Yes.
potentially fail on their own, and how powerful that is.
Yes.
I think about my parents and I love them to death, but I feel like my mom did a lot of like the things that I could have figured out on myself. Then I got to adulthood and there's basic things like I don't know how to do or never really discovered because I didn't struggle in that way. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
really resonated
absolutely.
with me. Yeah.
I usually tell parents that there's only 2 times that you really need to jump in, and that's when people or property are in danger of safety. Other than that, you can really lean back, and especially if you feel activated, which is the new word for triggered. If you feel activated, like you have your own issues around it, and that sometimes for little kids will show up with the idea of bullying. And I use the quotes because bullying in early childhood is really not an appropriate term, because early childhood, especially, they're just trying to figure out where they fit in the world. But parents would come to me often and say things like, they're going to be bullied and I'm not going to allow that, and be very charged over. In preschool world, it's, you're not coming to my birthday party, you're not my best friend anymore, or a little shove down the slide, which I know for parents that feels hard and scary, but the true reaction from parents is that they almost, I can't think of one time that this was not the case. They have their own story around when they were kids. And so oftentimes if we feel, I sometimes call it a hot button. If it's a hot button for us as a teacher or a parent, it'll show up in our parenting, it'll show up in our teaching. And we need to really be cognizant of what those things are so that we can show up and really give the child the space to figure out what that means for them, not what we want it to mean for them. So there really isn't a lot of things that we have to, as adults, have to jump in for kids. Sometimes we need to wait until we're calm. I do this because this is what we call when our lid is closed. This is a flipped lid. When we are calm, then we can go and say, hey, I noticed today this thing happened at the beach. I can tell that you were upset about it. Do you need some support in that area? Like, we can start asking them questions so that they know that they're seen, heard, understood, that we have their back. But we don't need to always jump in. And it's hard. It's a hard thing for parents because, you know, a lot of parents will describe the role of parenting as like their heart is outside their body, and it's them outside of themselves, and so they want to protect it. I mean, that's understandable. It's natural. But I think that we do a disservice to kids when we try to jump in and fix, like what you said, Drew. When we do everything for our kids, we really rob them of the lessons to figure it out. And it's a hard thing because it's an emotional battle for parents, for sure.
Yeah. I think about a lot, like what you said also, Drew, and just kind of piggybacking on what you said, Kelly, about like allowing them to fail and make mistakes. And that is a learning a skill. Like, I know that in my own life, like I wasn't allowed to like go to party. I wasn't really allowed to socialize in high school for fear of, like, you know, I have very strict mom and stepfather. But when I went to college, I didn't know how to socialize. And I'm still like super awkward, like, but like you have to allow kids to like go and be awkward and to make mistakes so they learn. And what better time for them to learn when they're young, where the stakes aren't as high.
Absolutely.
Or they can like, you know, people talk about fail. It's like we have this such a negative thing about failing in our culture, but actually failing is how you learn and how you grow. And I've seen that like with people in my family, or, you know, students I've worked with, and the parents just like the control, and not because they don't, it's because of, it's out of love, but it's
yes, absolutely.
They're never going to learn. Like, oh gosh.
And even thinking about like kids who probably practice failing at a younger age and learning to work through that are probably more resilient adults and like more likely to take, like, I don't know, safe risks when they're older, like just a new skill or something. Like, I bet that's like a learned habit as well.
Yeah. Well, even when we're talking about things like around consent, right? I see a lot when kids are young, and, you know, kids are often socialized different based on their gender, right? And so a lot of times when boys are socialized, if someone like doesn't like them, or even, any gender, someone doesn't like, oh, well, that person's stupid, they don't know, like it's like this thing that other person has a problem, where instead of saying like, wow, well, you know what? Not everyone's going to be your friend, and that's okay. And sometimes people don't want hugs, and all that's fine. So that when you get older, and that is a sexual situation, someone's like, I don't want to have sex. I don't want to do this behavior, rather than like internalizing it or blaming the other person. It becomes okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
people don't realize that, right? It starts so young, not even related to like sexual behaviors. It's about like, do you want a hug? Can I be your friend? Can I have this red crayon?
Yes.
That's where those skills are taught.
Politeness is so ingrained in our environment and in our culture that, I mean, and I did it too as a parent, that say sorry, that go hug the uncle that you haven't seen since 3 years ago at the family reunion, move away from my leg, don't be shy, they're fine. Like pushing kids into situations where they're already intuitively leaning back for whatever reason. We don't have to understand it as adults, but it's important that we honor that, because how many times as adults do we get into a space where it doesn't feel right? And, it might be a crowded elevator. It might be going into a bathroom. It might be going to a party. It could be a lot of things. But if we aren't taught and honored to trust our instincts as a young person, then we don't ever know what it feels like to honor the feeling and then be okay. Because oftentimes what we're told is that if we don't do this thing, then we're being rude, we're being impolite, we're being unsociable, we're we're not honoring, we're not taking care of the other person's feelings, and the other's feelings is not our job. And it's such a hard thing. I mean, it's a hard thing for me too. And it was a hard thing for me as a parent, because parents feel very judged about how their kids are presenting in front of other people. And so we make decisions sometimes as parents because of judgment from other people. And sometimes even we don't feel good about doing it as parents, but whatever crowd we're in or people we're around, we might feel like, oh, like there's an impression that's going to happen about me as a parent if my child doesn't do X, Y, and Z. And one more thing, as you can tell, I could talk about this forever, but Drew, to your point, as far as like, if we never know how to handle the feeling all the way through. So for instance, if you are a 4-year-old and your parent jumps in to take care of your hurt feelings, which is understandable, but if they give you all the directions on how to do that, or hand you an ice cream, or take you to go get a toy, or tell you, don't worry about it, they're just a meanie or whatever, then you never get the experience until you're on your own of what it feels like to go through the full spectrum of emotions. So the initial impact, the sadness, the anger, all the feelings that come up, and then knowing that you're going to be okay on the other side. This is why so many of us as adults will have a breakup, or we'll have something, understandably really difficult. And then we're like, I cannot live with this feeling, because they never got to experience the full spectrum of emotions.
Right. Managing the feeling of rejection. Yes. Right, is such a listen. I'm a Leo. Me and rejection do not get along, but it's a thing to work through. How many people go back to relationships or they stay with someone because the rejection, like all these things we learn when we're so young, bleed into who we are as people, as adults. And, my lens is always through sex and relationships. But it takes over there. Like we talk about, a lot of people who are socialized as girls and women have a thing where sex is something that just happens to them, not something that they are a part of, because that's what they've been taught. You're worried about the other person, right? Like how many women fake orgasms because they've been taught that this person's ego is more important than your own pleasure. And that all comes back to being a young kid and being told, oh, you have to share because it's this, or you have to do this, unsexuality related things.
I literally
And
have had
yeah.
that conversation so many times, Rachel, with my female clients, where they have said verbatim, I'm faking it because I don't want them to feel bad. And my question to them is, what if you had a conversation about what they need and about what you need, instead of faking it? Because you're doing a disservice for the other person, right? Because they're
that person's going around thinking they're a great lover, and really it's like,
right.
listen,
Exactly.
they're going around like, I put it down, and really they didn't do nothing. So like, maybe we could help them out. But then, right, the layers of also women were not supposed to be sexual because they were a hoe and blah, 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 all those things.
Shame for us, shame for them, taking on everybody's stuff and needing to manage it by denying ourselves. And obviously, this happens for men too, having to decide when the conversation happens. And to bring it back to like when I work with parents, when parents come to me and say, oh, they're asking me questions, I will say to them, just answer them. Use correct terminology, use science, and answer. And you'll know when they're done hearing the answer, because they'll be like, oh, I don't want to hear anymore, or okay, I'm going to go play with my toys. But answer, like they have questions, answer. You want them to come to you. That's a lesson my sister taught me. You want them to come to you as a parent, and as uncomfortable as it can feel, or when they get older and decisions they might make, it's important that, again, going back to that relationship, if you've had that relationship and they trust you, and they trust your reaction, then they'll keep coming to you. And hopefully if they don't, they have a great health teacher that they can go to, but that is not the case for everybody. So parents, it's important for parents to have that connection and that relationship, so that they do come to you and ask you the questions or tell you the hard things, as you guys know.
I feel like for me, it's really hard to like let other people be in uncomfortable emotions. Like I catch myself always feeling like I need to cheer them up or to do something, and like letting them, like even with Matt, my boyfriend, like we were having like, and I won't say an argument, just like disagreement, and like we're taking our space, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just like, it's so hard for me. And I know that comes from my childhood and like my parents doing that for me. And I'm just, it's like an active thing. It's so hard. So hard.
Yeah. You're not alone in that, Drew. I feel the same thing. I practice it for myself all the time. I take on other people's things, and not because they're asking me to. I just somehow decided very young that I needed to interject myself in what they're feeling and then make decisions around that for them and myself. And it's a hard thing to work through. So I feel that with you.
Well,
yeah. Not to turn this into a therapy session. Yeah.
No, but I think it's important.
No, not really. I'm just saying. I also say.
No,
but
I
think that's
appreciate
important. That. Like we talk about this, and people think like, oh, well, we have to be perfect. Like, no, we all are working on these things within ourselves. It's the first step is reflecting on your stuff, and it's like a constant learning and growing and trying and talking about it, as opposed to I'm perfect, I do all the things, because that's BS. No one is. We all have things that we're working on. Drew's like, wait, I am.
Absolutely not. I'm perfect.
But you know what I mean? And so I because we do have a very judgy culture, right? And so I don't want people to think that, oh no, you have to be perfect, and this is like the thing. No, it's all about just reflecting and thinking about and working and taking it one step at a time. And you never arrive at like some like completed project. It's always a work, and you're finding new things about yourself.
Looking at a cloud.
Yeah.
Constant work in progress. Kellie, I have a question for you, not to pivot, but I'm always curious about people's journeys to where they are.
Yeah.
And you talked about like starting in pre-K. How did you decide that's what you wanted to do? And then how did you decide to transition out of that into what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So I get that question a lot because it seems vastly different, but in my mind, it's not vastly different. So from the time I was, being asked as a very young student, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said teacher. And then when I was 15, I was in a pageant, a very small town pageant. My mom still has the article and has reminded me of this many times. But I was asked that question. I know I was asked that question, and I said I wanted to be a child psychologist, not get married when I was 35, and then have 3 children. So I didn't do that in any of that order, and I'm not a child psychologist, but it's always been in my wheelhouse. First of all, kids and dogs are my absolute favorite beings. I think that we can learn so much from kids, and we should look to them often, of all ages, children of all ages. And so I started very young in preschool, and part of that was because I was a young mom. And so when I became a young mom, I decided just to stay in preschool, and because my kids could go with me, it was practical, and I loved doing it. Long story short, I got burnt out on the teaching. I really discovered that when I was coming home, I wasn't a very nice mom. And so then I moved to administration. I really loved that piece. I enjoyed training and working with adults and families. And then I decided to take kind of the piece of that job that I loved, which was working with families and doing that parent education piece, and turn it into a coaching business. And then that changed into working with individuals and couples. And then, and I went back to school when I was in my 40s, like Rachel's age now. I went back to school. At the same time, my 2 oldest kids were freshmen. I was a freshman in college. They were also a freshman. It was very interesting. The FAFSA season was crazy at that time, to be honest. And so anyways, and then I heard about this community-based mental health, behavioral health, that I was qualified at that time just simply because of my degree. And then I found I really liked it. I mean, it has its challenges like everything, right? We don't need to get into what those are, but when I'm out in the community, every single day is different. Every person is different. But all of the roles that I have very much line up with that core belief system. And what I feel like I bring to the table well is being able to connect with people and making them feel like they're in a safe space. So whether it's honestly all those roles that Rachel mentioned, that is the key foundation, is just connecting with people. And I enjoy doing that. So it feels like it went pretty smoothly, and it all just kind of rolls into one, but that essentially is how it morphed into what I'm doing now.
Very cool. Yeah, I can't imagine. Sorry, I always think about the young ones. Pre-K looks cute on the outside, but
so many body fluids. Just like, no.
I know.
That is
Rachel and I have often talked about how I used to say, "Oh, teenagers," and then I had my own teenagers, and I thought they were pretty cool, for the most part, and their friends were pretty cool. But Rachel and I have often had that conversation about like preschool teenagers, and she's like, "No way to preschool," and I'm like, "Ooh, no way to teenagers." I did sub in a high school classroom once, and I was like, "Nope, won't be doing that again." It was just, I didn't like doing this.
It's funny because but you know what, you used to, I remember when your kids were small, and maybe when it was just your oldest,
yeah,
not all of them, you used to be like, I'm afraid of, you used to like say you were afraid of teenagers. And I was always like, what? I was like a high school teacher. That's when I first started. That was back in California days. But I've seen a real shift in you. You don't say that you're afraid of them anymore. It's just like a preference of what you like to.
Yeah, no, I actually really love teenagers. I think they're really cool. And they're kind of idiosyncrasies and quirkiness. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm older and I can appreciate that more, but I think there's a lot of value to kind of their vibe, you know, like this is what I want to do, even if it seems weird to the rest of the world or whatever. I think they have an interesting perspective, and we don't give them enough credit. We often say, "Oh, well, they're just a teenager," and that irritates me so much.
So much. I mean, I am a lover of like 10 and up.
Mhm.
Like, no, I don't want to teach middle school. Like, I don't want all the middle schoolers at once, but a
Yeah.
small group I'm good with. But I
Yeah.
love because you're having like for me, it feels like actual conversations. We can talk about things. I can learn things. I'm not good with the like, want a juice box? Blow your nose. Don't pee. Like that's
There's more to it
that,
than that,
Oh my
Rachel. I
but
assure
but
you.
that's how I feel. Like I'm
Yeah.
always
No,
like,
I get it.
I think I might have had kids if they come out like 10. It's like the first 10 years that seems like really aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You're not, I
Yeah.
mean, I would imagine you have like little to no time. You're always watching them or doing something. It sounds exhausting.
Well, you're
Children.
not wrong. You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
Pasture is part of it. Yeah, for sure.
I
Well,
also
I'm
think,
curious.
oh, go ahead.
This might be putting you on the spot, but how, when you think about like your own journey as a parent, and then like what you know now as a professional, and then watching your adult children now parent,
Yeah.
how like what is that like? What comes up? Like talk about that a bit, if you don't mind.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if my nephews and niece follow this, so maybe what you say.
First of all, I think that my kids do a good job parenting. They definitely do some things different than I would do now, but not necessarily different than how they were raised. And so this is a point that we talk about, especially in Adlerian psychology, about the imprint that parents make at such a young age, and that no matter, and I didn't fully understand it until I saw the full circle of it happening in my own personal life. Of course, I see it and teach it a lot, but so when, you know, and I should know, because even my own how I was parented showed up, even the things that I didn't want to. All of us as parents at some point have said, I will never fill in the blank. And then when we're the most stressed, we do the whatever the fill in the blank is. That is universal. And it's normal. You know, brain research says that we just fall back on the things that we were modeled, really, not necessarily what we were taught. So to answer your question, I have to bite my tongue sometimes. Sometimes they will come to me for help. They know what I do. We've even done a little parenting class in my living room with my son, my daughter, and their spouses, and that had its good and not good moments, because I raised independent kids who have opinions, and that's what I wanted. And so they have opinions, and they're not always in line with me. So I have to honor them as human beings also, and their own parenting journey. So I talk a lot with my friends who are also grandparents. And one woman in particular, she said to me, Kellie, I just remind myself that it's not my time to parent anymore. That's their job. And if they want to come to me, then they can. So it's almost like what we were just talking about with younger kids and just interfacing with humans in general. Like, it's really their journey, and I can offer my input. They can read my posts and my content if they want. They know where to find me. And what you said, Rachel, earlier, parents are always, for the most part, there's some outliers, but parents are always usually coming to the table with their version of love and teaching, and wanting their children to show up in the world as respectful, kind, professional people contributing to the world and being able to, make a living and do all that. So how people go about it is different, and it's an interesting place to be in. Like, now I understand what my mom said when my mom would give me advice, or my mom would offer her input. I am now in that place, and now I can appreciate how difficult it was for her to watch me and my ex-husband parent and see things that I maybe couldn't see, because I see the same thing. Like, I can see kind of where things are going. But it's not really my place to say. I mean, I'm sure if my kids listen, they would say, well, sometimes Mom, you do say, and that would be true. Like, that is also who I am. And so, and sometimes they'll say, Mom, I don't want parenting advice right now. I'm like, okay, Like I have to honor that that's their journey, and that's the relationship with their kids. Also, the other thing that's important is that when I see my family together, it's everybody together, cousins and all of that. And I know what children bring to the table in those moments. It's chaos. And so I'm not necessarily seeing their intimate moments just one-on-one, or they're just their family together. And so I know that it's different. And I have to remind myself of that. And when you're a grandparent, there's a whole other layer of worry. You worry for your kids, and then and I say worry because that's kind of my mode. I'm a worrier anyways. And so there's just an extra level of like things for me to think about, which is not really my job, right? It's not my job to control what they do. They know where I am if they want help. And I think I'm getting better at kind of just leaning back and being supportive. And so, but it's a tricky dance, to say the least.
I have a hard time with that as well. I'm just thinking of, I have no like children, but I think of like when I had student teachers as well. I don't know if this is like a similar analogy, but like how much to let them like struggle and figure it out as when to offer support. Because like sometimes they're tanking during lessons and you're just like, oh my God, this is painful to watch and I want to intervene. It's like, okay, like let's let them do this and we'll talk about it after. But also to your point, Kellie, oh my God, you're talking about like family gatherings, like they're always, I mean, especially if you have big families, like it sounds like yours is, like they're chaos. Kids are running around screaming, like there's always people hitting each other, like fighting or playing. Like it's not, I don't think it's fair to judge people's parenting styles based on those interactions.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
What I think is interesting, so for our listeners, and Drew, you may or may not know this. So Kellie and I are actually half siblings. We don't consider ourselves that, but we have different moms, same dad. So I find it interesting that we are in similar fields. Like we didn't grow up together in the same house. We're 7 years apart. Kellie's 7 years older than me. She would come visit for the summers. But our moms made sure that we were connected. But I find it interesting that we have such similar careers, even though we are raised in different households and neither of us were raised by our father. But I'm still wondering, I'm thinking about Dad, actually. And what in him did he give to us that made us these caring type of people? Because our dad was a hot mess, but he would give his last shirt to a person that was experiencing homelessness on the street, no questions asked, no judgment. He welcomed people into his home that he probably shouldn't have. Like he was that kind of person. So I wonder if that is something that was given to us from him.
Well, I like to say, absolutely it was. Because as much as our dad had his own challenges for a variety of reasons, he, exactly what you said, super kind, and very accepting of all types of people. And, so anyways, and also kudos to our moms. I think about this often because they made sure that we continue to be together. So thank you to our moms. And to our dad, we are both, Rachel and I, and this is important and this comes up a lot in parenting, specifically Adlerian psychology, is your birth order. So while I'm older than Rachel because I'm 7 years apart and we weren't raised together, we are both firstborns. And so we have similar things, like firstborns bring. Do you see my little face? We have similar things for, I don't want to say control, but also, yes, it's sometimes it's control. It's like wanting to help
leaders
everybody.
Of the family.
Yeah, exactly. And so because we're the oldest sibling in both of our prospective families, it's also interesting, which also plays into our role of these caring fields, right? Of wanting to teach and care for people and support people, just by nature of also us being firstborns, essentially.
I'm thinking about our moms, and I'm hoping to have my mom on the show. She's actually going to be on in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I
which
can't
would
wait
be
to see that episode.
a good time. Make sure y'all tune in for that.
It'll
But
be awesome.
I think about that a lot because I just think it's funny. First of all, Dad definitely had a type. First of all, second of all, it's even though they both made sure we were connected, there's still like a little baby mama drama. Even though our dad passed like years ago, neither of them have been with our father for decades.
A long time. Yeah.
But there's still like a little there, which I think is I just find it funny because obviously, of course, but I think it's such a testament. Like I'm so appreciative of that because there's seven. I have seven. There's seven of. Well, I have six siblings. All of them are half except for one, and I am close with most of them, and I appreciate that from my mom and your mom, because I don't walk around and say, "Oh, I have." This is I don't introduce people typically. I never introduce you. This is my half sister.
Yeah,
I say it now for context. I never say that.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that we have that because I know so many people that the
Same.
half siblings, there is not a connection at all. And or they don't even know them. And I do often wonder if we have any other siblings that we just don't know about. I'm waiting for Ancestry 23 to send me an email.
I have a quick question for Drew, if I'm allowed to ask questions.
Totes, yes.
Absolutely not.
Drew, what are your thoughts when you're watching me and Rachel? Can you tell that we're related?
I would say yes. I was like trying to think of like why I thought so. I mean, just in the way you speak. I mean, you're both so professional, so it could just be a professional thing right now. But yeah, I love the fact that you're both in similar fields. I love the fact that you have strong relationships with the people around you. You're both very caring people. Other than that, I think I need to get to know you a little better. I think you need to come to New York or Miami.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, you've met two of my siblings so far, so I need you to.
Yes, met Dana.
I think you got to come to the family reunion when we have one ever.
Yes, please.
Oh, and I met your mom. I met your mom virtually.
You did. Yes, when I was living at mom's during COVID. But she asked about you a lot. She's always like, "Is that cute guy I saw on Zoom?"
You gotta send Kelly the video of you with Lola. Have you sent her that yet? I think
I probably did.
That's my favorite video of all time. I don't know.
Maybe we should put that in our blooper reel at the end of the season for everyone to see.
I don't know if I've seen it, Rachel. That doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, I'll send it to you. I mean, I also send a lot of videos to people I love of me doing ridiculous things. So if I'm ever famous, I think I'm in for a whirlwind of her. I'll be on Jimmy Fallon,
when
just
you're
like
famous.
so embarrassed. Oh, thank you for that mind frame change.
It was like peak COVID. Rachel's like in Arizona with her mom, and she just got Lola. She has her like in a pack, and she's just like prancing around, just being.
Yeah,
weird.
I have not seen that.
It's just so stupid funny. I made a copy video. For
yes, and then you did a fan video. Okay, we're gonna have to post this at the end of this episode so people can see how ridiculous we are as friends. And get as a teaser to mom's episode. Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Well, Kellie,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go, Drew.
Yeah, I would say like, yeah, Kelly, I guess like I'm really taking away from this conversation like the importance of connection. I don't know if I'll ever plan to be a parent, but like really thinking about that. How would you say that like, or give advice to maybe teachers or people who work with
as far as building connection?
Yeah. How would anything?
So, the first step really is to connect to yourself and figure out like where you have disconnections to repair that. I know. And then I think the first and foremost important thing about connection is being curious about yourself, and then be curious about the other, whatever the other is, whether it's a partner, a student, a child, your own child, but being curious and really having genuine curiosity about what they're about. And that even means young children when they're growing, because as much as we want to, as much as they have some of our DNA, or they have our DNA, that doesn't mean that they are us. And a lot of times what parents do, including myself, is we want to like make our kids be something either that we missed out on, or either that we hoped and dream. And so for some parents, and I know that you guys have seen this in education, it's almost like their kids are somewhat of like a trophy, and they get pushed to the point of like what their parents really wanted, or and those kids usually often go quite the opposite, right? Especially during teenage individuation stage, when they're like trying to push away from the adult in their life and figure out their own identity. That's when they usually often will push away from those pushes that we give as parents. So connecting to yourself and then being curious.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I feel like so many people, parents included, just really aren't connected to ourselves. I know that's a journey as well, but like,
really,
I can think of a ton of people that are not super
yeah,
connected, including myself.
absolutely.
For a large portion of my life.
Oh, same. Still working on that. But I think that's really important with when we talk about sexuality education. The first thing that I teach teachers or talk to parents about is you have to know your own shit when it comes to sex and sexuality and identity before you can ever teach it, right? You're not going to be prepared to talk to your kid about it if you're still with your own stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of people do take, like even teachers, they're trying, but they're not realizing that they're putting their own values and their own stuff on their classrooms, or even parents. And not to judge parents or to shame them. It's just what we do as humans. Our own stuff comes up. And I just think that self-reflection is so important. And I wish it was a skill we were taught more from a younger age, because often it comes with like maturity. But like, that's what people say, I wish I knew now, I wish I knew what I know now when I was 20. But I think that is a skill that we can refine younger if we're taught how to.
Yeah, my 5-year-old grandson learned how to meditate in preschool, and it's the cutest thing ever to watch him meditate, and then to ask us to meditate. Like, Grandma, I think you need to meditate so you can calm down. Whatever that means. I mean, I'm not like angry with him, but yeah.
Grandma, do you need a nap right now?
It's amazing. So I think that conversation is happening more in education. Emotional regulation is a big thing, even especially in preschool. I mean, that's really where it has to happen before all the things happen when you become an adolescent. It's really hard to start a meditation. It's not impossible, but it's harder to like get the brain to go there and learn that, as opposed to learning that when you're a young child in preschool, for example.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is so important. I think about one of our other sisters and how she parents, and my 10-year-old nephew is so emotionally intelligent for a 10-year-old. Like, we can say like, how are you feeling? And he'll be like really descriptive in his feelings and open to being like, wow, I feel really nervous about this. But then I'm like, more emotionally intelligent than most adults I know, which is really a testament to our sister's parenting. But it's cool to see, and I do think a lot of people are learning that now. And even in school, we're talking about like emotional and mental health and social emotional learning. And, SEL is in some places like controversial, but I'm like, this is just, we can talk about that why in another day. It's just like really like understanding emotions, being able to like, I'm having this emotion because, and more than just fine or okay, good, angry. Like, so I do wish that we were, I love that it's happening in pockets in some places. And I wish it was happening more for people of all ages, because we all need it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That was awesome.
Yes, I know. It's so fun talking to my sister about professional things
Yeah.
because we usually don't. We just talk about like sister
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Yeah,
cool
I have
to
so
talk about
many,
this.
so many things to add at another time. But yeah, I love watching you guys, by the way. So kudos to the work that you're doing and the work that also looks like just an absolute great time. So
Oh, thanks, sis.
Yeah.
there's
Yay.
keep doing it. I enjoy watching it and listening to it. So I don't think I've missed an episode. So
Yay.
thank you for putting it out there, both of you. Like, just I want to acknowledge the work that you're doing, and I know it's still your time, and it's your heart, and you're sharing important information. So just big kudos to both of you for the work that you're doing. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
That means a
sis.
lot. Yeah, thank you. Kellie, do you want to share with our viewers like how they can find you on social media if you feel comfortable, or like an email or website?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Resue. My last name is like rescue, but without the C. So KELRESUE. And then my website is Kellie with an IE, Resue.com. So that's how most people will reach out to me, is through that. There's a chat box on my website. So
awesome. When we post your episode, we'll post your socials as well, so people get in touch with you, and we'll even put it in the episode description so that anyone who's listening, if they want to get in touch with Kellie, they can. We're so excited you had time for us today to come on. And yeah, it was awesome. So we will see everyone next week for the next episode of Sex Ed in the City. Until then, have a great week. Bye, y'all.
Yay. Bye, y'all. Bye.
Follow us on Spotify, podcasts on Apple, or our YouTube channel, Sex Ed in the City. Stay connected. We hope to see you soon.